Hello everyone. Today I will tell you about the film Dune Part 1. Enjoy watching. Before watching, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. I'm trying to develop this channel, and your support is the only thing I have. The film begins on the planet Arrakis, known as Dune. A local girl, Fremen, and her fellow tribesmen watch as aliens collect spice. A special spice, melange, in the desert. The Harkonnens are responsible for the collection. Hiding in the sand, Fremen attacks the collectors, destroying the harvesters, the mining machines, and hiding from retaliatory attacks in caves. The locals fail to drive out the aliens, but one day the Emperor orders them to leave the planet. The Harkonnens board ships and fly away. The story moves to the planet of the Atreides. Paul is tormented by nightmares. His mother, Lady Jessica, trains her son to use his voice. Paul studies the history of Dune and the Fremen. From the constant use of the spice, their eyes are blue. An Imperial messenger arrives to convey the Emperor's order about the appointment to Arrakis. Later, Paul meets mentor Duncan, who is preparing to fly away first to prepare everything. The young man asks permission to go with him, but his father is against it. The influence of the trades threatens to unite the great houses, which could undermine his power. Leto plans to teach his son political tricks. First, on Arrakis, they need to enlist the help of the Fremen. After the conversation, Halleck, a devoted warrior who replaces Duncan as a trainer, visits Paul. The young man does not want to train, but Halleck insists the enemies will not wait. They activate power armor, vulnerable only to cold weapons in close combat, and practice. The fight ends in a draw. At night, Paul is summoned to a meeting with the Reverend Mother of the Bene Gesserit order, an ancient school of body and mind training created by women. Jessica warns her son not to contradict him. The Reverend uses her voice to force the young man to obey. She has prepared a test. He holds his hand in a box without removing it in pain, or she will kill him. Paul passes the test. The Reverend Mother says that he has inherited great power from his mother, after which she leaves the planet, reprimanding Jessica for disobeying the order by giving birth to a son instead of a daughter. After her departure, Jessica sees Paul. He overheard the conversation and is aware of the affairs of the order, governing the Empire's policies, keeping a low profile. Soon the Atreides arrive on Arrakis. They are met by a desert. They fly on copters to a city covered in sand, where the ruler's residence is located. While Leto inspects the infrastructure, Jessica chooses a maid. Her choice falls on Freeman's woman. She presents the crysknife as a gift, believing that the new mistress is the mother of the Messiah. Paul examines a fresco of Shai Kaluta, a sandworm that produces spice, and then watches a documentary about the planet. In order not to disturb the worms with their stomping, the Fremen move with a special sandy gait. Also, the Fremen do not consist of only Gordons and Morgans. Paul notices a mechanical killer beetle in the room and freezes so as not to attract attention. The robot cannot find a victim. When the maid enters, the beetle reacts and only Paul's reaction saves the woman. It turns out that the Harkonnens walled up the killer operator in the wall, where he spent 6 weeks. On the Harkonnen planet, the Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother tells Baron Vladimir an important message. The Emperor will allocate his elite guards, the Sardaukars, to destroy the Atreides. But the Order wants Paul and Jessica to survive. The Baron agrees, but as soon as the mother leaves, he orders Mentat to eliminate everyone. At the meeting, Thufir reports that the Harkonnens left behind a liquid junk for spice mining. It will be a long time before they can reach their previous level of production, unless they use Splurgiola. Dr. Keynes, who has been working on Arrakis for 20 years, is responsible for the equipment. Duncan's copter interrupts the inventory. He reports that he spent 4 weeks with the Fremen in Sitch, an underground city with about 10,000 people. There are plenty of such settlements, which refutes the Harkonnens' misconception that there are a maximum of 50,000 Fremen. At the same time, they are excellent warriors. Duncan barely defeated them to gain their trust. Duncan brought the leader of Stitch, Stilgar. The first thing the guest does is spits on the table, which angers the guards. By the standards of a desert dweller, sharing bodily moisture is a sign of respect. Leto, following Duncan's example, also spits on the table. The Duke points out that they are not Harkonnen and want to be friends. Freeman, in response, suggests collecting spice and not looking for his people in the sands. Later in the barracks, Duncan shares his experience of communicating with the Fremen. He brought some devices from them that are different from what the locals make, and also says how much he admires them. The locals have learned to live in the desert, becoming part of it. In the morning, the Duke, his son, and guards go to Dr. Kynes for an introductory flight. The doctor, checking the suits, almost runs into the knives of the guards, but Leto allows him to make sure that the clothes are in order. Kynes notices that Paul skillfully put on a Fremen desert suit, which makes him remember the prophecy. Copters carry them over frozen dunes, a sand sea floating below. Noticing a column of sand, the Atreides find a crawler harvester. Sucking out the spice, it throws out the rest. The Duke notices a moving wave in the distance, a sandworm preparing to attack. Kynes calls a tow truck for the crawler. When it arrives, it turns out that one of the clamps has failed and cannot secure the vehicle. Leto decides to save the crew, for which all 3 copters land. Paul and the others go out to pick up the people, stepping on the real sand of Arrakis for the first time. Scooping up a handful, he sees how it shines. The harvester crew gets out of the car and runs to the copters. Paul helps with directions when they are covered by a gust of wind that has raised the sand. Inhaling spice, the young man catches a vision, but Halleck brings him out of his trance in time, managing to bring him to the copter before the worm begins to absorb the source of irritating vibrations. At home, after being examined by Dr. Yue, Paul confesses to his mother that he saw Freeman's blue-eyed girl in a vision. He also saw Lady Jessica herself, her eyes blue from the spice, and a baby in her arms. The young man believes that his mother is pregnant, which surprises her. But his clairvoyant talent does not allow Paul to know that the Emperor's personal army, the Sardaukar, are preparing to leave for Arrakis to help the Harkonnens destroy the Artides. Jessica goes to her husband, who is worried. Will she protect her son if it contradicts the will of the Bene Gesserit? After lights out, someone paralyzes the guards with shots. The attacker turns off the protective shields and electricity. Leto sees the reflections of light signals in the window and goes to check. Noticing a wounded servant, he turns on the force field, but it does not help against the paralyzing dart. The immobilized Duke sees that the traitor is Dr. Yue. The guards sound the alarm. There is a bombardment from orbit. The aircraft is destroyed before it takes off. Without transport, the Artides take the fight to the ground, where the Harkonnens are landing. The guards valiantly hold off the enemy on the stairs, not noticing how the Sardaukars land behind them, turning the tide of battle. The attackers capture the residence. Robin executes the prisoners, while the Sardaukars roam the building. Duncan deftly deals with the guards, rushing to help Paul. But his room is empty. Duncan sneaks up to the airfield, where he kills several attackers. Having scared off the rest, he steals a copter and flies away, dodging a laser. Dr. Yue explains that the Harkonnens have a wife. He takes Leto's seal, promising to give it to Paul, and implants a tooth with poison in the Duke himself. When Baron Vladimir approaches, it is enough to clench his jaw and exhale. He will die, but he will take his sworn enemy with him. The Baron arranges an audience for the naked and paralyzed Leto in the dining hall. Vladimir kills Dr. Yue, reuniting him with his wife. He then leans over Leto, activating his power armor, intending to end the long-standing feud by completely destroying one of the sides. Leto bites into the capsule and exhales the poison. Its power is enough to kill everyone in the room. 3 Harkonnens who have captured Paul and his mother take them to the desert to leave them there to die. The young man tries to use his voice, but it doesn't work. His mother, with her mouth taped, tells him to choose a different tone in sign language. Paul convinces the bruiser to remove the gag. After this, the more experienced Jessica uses her voice to force the Harkonnens to kill each other. The copter breaks down after landing. From a dune, they watch the attacked city burn, after which, taking a survival kit, they pitch a tent to wait out the sandstorm. Inside the kit, Paul finds his father's ring and useful tools. A young man who has inhaled spice sees the Sardaukars engaging in battle with the Fremen. He leads the latter into battle with blue eyes. A girl also stabs him with a knife. In the morning, the young man turns on the power device, and they get out from under the sand. Duncan picks them up. They go to an abandoned ecological station, where they temporarily set up a base. Paul says that the great houses are afraid of what happened. The Sardaukars are secretly killing them. He asks Dr. Kynes to act as a witness to unite the houses against the Emperor. To prevent this from ending in war, Paul offers a way out. He marries the Emperor's daughter and becomes heir to the throne. To do this, he needs to get off the planet with the help of the Fremen, whom in exchange he will lead to the paradise promised by the prophecy. He asks the ecologist to help. The Sardaukars, having calculated their location, land on the base. Having sensed them, the Fremen set up an ambush, hiding in the sand. Duncan hears the sounds of battle and prepares to hold the defense to give Paul time to escape. The young man recalls a prophetic dream in which his mentor dies and wants to help him, but he closes the door. While the doctor opens a secret passage, Duncan fights a squad of guards. The latter manages to pierce him with a blade. The Sardaukars open the locked door with a laser when the wounded Duncan gets up and continues the fight before finally falling dead. In the tunnel, the doctor tells Jessica and Paul to run to the 2-seater copter and fly into the storm at an altitude of 5,000 meters, where the wind forces weaken. She herself will go the other way. Having climbed onto the sand, the doctor turns on the device to attract the worm. He prepares to lasso it in order to ride away on horseback, but receives a blow to the back. However, they are powerless against Shea Kaluta and die ingloriously in its voracious mouth. Paul and his mother find the copter and take off, heading east. 3 enemy copters are flying behind them. The young man taxis straight into the storm, and the pursuers, having fired their missiles, turn back. Paul has another vision. The young man folds the copter's wings. The apparatus is carried upward by air currents, where the wind speed is lower. There, Paul turns on the engines, breaking out of the hurricane and glides for a landing, which turned out to be hard because of the lost wings. In the dining hall, where everyone died, Baron Vladimir hides from the poison under the ceiling thanks to the flying machine. Subordinates place him in a healing capsule with black liquid until he fully recovers. The nephew reports that the last Atreides disappeared in the storm and probably died. Paul and Jessica get out of the copter and run along the sand to the rocks. There they change into Fremen suits, after which they move in search of the locals, unaware that they are already being followed. When it becomes necessary to continue their journey along the sand, Paul remembers the documentary about the sandwalk and teaches his mother how to move. At night, they climb the ridge of a dune, where they make camp. A worm is active nearby. The only way to escape is to run to the rocks. The Atreides run away while the worm pursues them. Stumbling, Paul falls, but almost reaches the rocks when the worm emerges and stands in front of the people. Then he dives into the sand, going to the side. Having run higher onto the rocks, the young man notices how someone distracted the beast with a device. He understands that they are being followed. The Fremen, led by Stilgar, show up. They want to kill the strangers to take the water from their bodies, but the leader says that the boy cannot be touched. He is the chosen one. The others do not believe it. Stilgar decides that Paul can be re-educated, but the woman is too old. He attacks Jessica, who fights him off, allowing her son to escape. Realizing that Bene's sister, Gesserit, is in front of them, Stilgar invites the strangers into the Sish. Upstairs with a pistol, Paul is called out by a Freeman, who turns out to be the girl from his visions. Her name is Chani. The Freemen prepare to go into the city when one of the warriors, Jameis, demands a rematch. Jessica, having defeated Stilgar, has stripped him of his leadership status. Paul goes out to fight in his mother's place. Chani gives him a cross knife made from a sandworm's tooth, saying that he will die with dignity. In the circle, the Atreides greet their opponent with a family gesture, and the fight begins. Paul takes a punch in the nose before he gets into a rhythm. He stops his blade time and again in close proximity to his opponent, pitying him as he has never killed anyone before. Jameis is furious, believing that the youth is playing around. Paul has to counterattack with a fatal blow. The Freemen congratulate him on his victory. Stilgar says that he is now one of them. Jessica asks for help in getting off the planet, but her son suddenly refuses. He has another plan, to find, as his father advised, an alliance with the locals and to learn their strength. Taking the corpse for processing, the Freemen leave at dawn. Afterwards, the Atreides go with them through the desert, which is crossed by a rider on a sandworm. That same strength of the Freemen. This is where the film ends.